Good morning. I hope it's warmer where you are at than it is here today. Uh, Winter has arrived here in the upper Midwest, no doubt about it. Good morning, Joyce from Mesa, Arizona. It's got to be warmer down there than it is up here. Sharon is here from Delaware. Good morning, Sharon. And Donna from North Carolina. Good morning. And there's Cactus Deb from Glendale, Arizona. Cactus Deb got that name because that is what my husband dubbed her. And she's such a good sport. She's just going with it. Good morning, Susie. How are you? You're here from Arlington, Virginia. My gosh, that's a long way away from where we are for sure. And hopefully you're having better weather. Fernie is here. Good morning from Minnesota, Fernie. I got your email and I did have a chance to answer it. I hope that the answers are helpful to you. Please welcome Fernie. She is a very new quilter and totally new to ruler and template quilting, but she's very interested and wants to give it a shot. So let's show her some love and welcome her. Okay. This morning, I am going to do a few things that before we get on the machine that are a little different. You're not used to seeing me do these things, but I do want to make sure that we cover these items because there are some good tips here for when we want to go with our big quilt. And that's what you're going to see me do today. I'm actually going to put a big quilt onto this machine in just a little while. Good morning, Marcy from Houston. Looks like we're going to invade you guys in October this year. The International Quilt Festival is earlier than usual. And Linda, my Michigander buddy, good morning to you. Okay, here we go. I've got quite a few things that I want to cover. And the first thing I'm going to cover is to use tape to put our pin in. And I know you've seen this before. The reason that I want to do this is because I am going to be moving this around on a big quilt and I don't want to have to try and push it through the bottom. Plus the fact that if I push it through the bottom, it's got to come basically where the thickest part of the quilt is. And when you're working with a large quilt, that can tend to get a little tricky. So my tape here is 3/4 of an inch wide. So I am going to take that and put it, find my halfway mark, which is 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to make a line and I'm going to do the same on both. Okay. Whoops, wrong way. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark that. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I put these together at a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to use my grid glider here, which just happens to have some beautiful markings on for me. I'm going to go ahead and lay that down. And then I am going to put the top one on like that. Whoops. And I'm going to just make sure that I finish up that little crosshair there. Okay. So I've got my crosshair. Ronnie's here from northeastern Arizona. Good morning, Ronnie. Nice to see you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my tack and I'm going to press it through from the right side. This is very similar to what we do when we're placing a tack in fabric. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it in from the back side. And you'll see my hole is nice and apparent there, and in it goes. So I've got my tack ready to go when we're ready for it. Okay, that was step number one. The other things that I want to show you is what design we're going to be working on and how I came up with this design. Okay, I knew that I wanted to use my artisan curves and I wanted to use the oval ones. And what I have here is my blocks for this project are 16 inches. So that's a good size. And you're going to see one in just a few minutes. So I wanted something a little smaller in the center and I wanted to use a couple different ones. And I could make this a whole lot fancier and a whole lot more detailed. However, the person that this quilt is going to, and coupled with when you see the quilt, you'll understand there's a lot of things going on in this quilt. So I really didn't want the quilting to be the star of the show. I want it to be seen, I want it to be noticed, but I don't want it to actually detract from everything else that's going on in the quilt. And this is something that we really need to be able to understand. When our quilts are busy and we want the stitching to be there, be seen, but not necessarily being the star. And, that can happen with a lot of different things. One is to cut down on the intricacy of the quilting, which I've done here. Another way that can happen is to use a thread that's going to blend in with the quilt, which I'm not doing on this one. And you'll see why this one would be kind of hard to do, although usually any type of color or pattern, if you use a gray tone on the quilt with the thread, it normally blends in beautifully. So that's just something good to keep in your vault, in your information vault. Deanna, good morning. Oh, thank you so much. She said we had a great class last night, and we did. It was so fun. I really, really enjoyed doing this, and I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. I probably shouldn't be telling you this yet. However, in January, I will be doing 3 live broadcasts per week instead of 2. So that's going to be interesting. We are going to add one, and thank you, Donna, so much. I hope you keep liking these classes. I just enjoy it so much, and I love having you guys all in my studio with me because I feel like you are here. Okay, so back to today's project. Okay, I did maybe 4, 5, 6 sketches before I came up with the one that I actually liked. So, what we're going to do is I wanted to get a delineation between the smaller oval and the larger oval. And as I was doing that, I was trying to stitch along while I was moving the oval. I found that to be difficult for me. And you know what? It's okay. I mean, we all have things that we do better than others, and that wasn't my best. So, what I've done instead of trying to stitch along is I've gone ahead and used my circles on quilts. So, you're going to get to see me do that. Good morning, Lois from Delaware. Good to have you here this morning. Get a little caffeine there. So we're going to need the pin for that. And I'm going to move this aside for now. Now, what I will do with that piece of paper that I've got that design on is I'm going to go ahead when I finish with this project, I'm going to fold it up and I am going to put it into the file folder that I keep my artisan curve ovals in. So I've got it for future reference because sometimes it's nice to not reinvent the wheel. Okay, so here are the three templates I'm going to use. Very simple. I'm going to use my Artisan Curve 66, and this is a 2.5 by 3-inch oval. I'm going to use my Artisan Curves 62, and this is a 1 by 2-inch oval, and my Artisan Curve 65, which is a 1.5 by 3-inch oval. Now, the other thing that we want to notice is all these little holes with numbers next to them coming down the side. And what this is these are the number of inches that we will be stitching this out at, okay? And I'll explain that just a little bit more as we get our quilt under the needle. But first, what I decided I would do, just to make this really, really easy for you all to see, I took an extra block that I had, and yes, just so you know, this is Sharpie. This is a block that I'm using strictly for demonstration, and I do put Sharpies on them because I know it's not going in a quilt, it's not going to be kept for posterity, it's just a teaching tool. Okay, now let's take a look at how we would normally put this tack in. And I know we're talking about a lot of things this morning other than the actual quilting, but you know, these things are important to understand as well. Normally, what we would do is we would take our little tack here and we would poke it through the center, which sometimes can be a chore. I'm not going to lie to you. When you have a big quilt, it is. On a small quilt square like this, it's rather easy. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to come and take that out. And what you're going to see is there is a mark back here where it came through. I'm simply going to push it back through that little hole that we just created. And don't worry, the hole will heal up. And get it down on my table here because I don't have it straight. There we go. And I'm going to push it back up through the center. And I am off just a little bit. I don't want to be, okay? I know I'm not OCD. I just want things to be perfect. Okay, let's do this again. There we go. Now it's coming right through that center. So what you can see is now our tack has come through this hole. And as I said, in a small one like this, it's okay. But when we get that big one going, what we're going to do is we're going to lay this tape on the center. And you're going to get to see me do that. Okay? So what I did with this one is it's a two-step system, really. Okay? And let me pull the paper back up here because when I do my drawings, and I think that this is really an important point to bring up. When I do my drawings, what you'll see is right here I've got notes. And so this tells me that I used the number 65 template at 8 inches. That is to make this first go round. And then I used the number 66 at 8.5 inches. And that is the second go round. So let's go ahead and start from there. And you know, if you wanted to, this would make a really good spot to put a mini spinifex in. I chose not to do that. And the reason that I'm choosing not to do that is really twofold. One is because I like the simplicity of this pattern for this particular quilt. But secondly, that's where all your fabrics are going to come together and it's going to be the heaviest part of your block. So to go through there with the spin effects can get a little thick with the thread. And remember, we need to use that spot so that we have our tag and we can use our templates coming out. So those are really the two reasons I opted not to do any more on that center. So let's take a look. The first round, I said we're using the number 65, which is the 1.5 by 3 inch oval, and we're going to set it on the 8 inch hole, which is right here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that on. Now, what we're going to do is this is actually going to be using three of our, oh, I have 16 reference lines on here. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see who's joined us. Okay. Um, Bob has joined us from Chicagoland. Good morning, Bob. Nice to have you here. And Pam is here from Maine. Best lobster ever. And Linda is here from the United Arab Emirates. Good morning, Linda. So happy you guys are all here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to stitch. This is reference line 16 and I'm lined up on reference line 1 and I'm going to stitch from reference line 16 to reference line 2. You'll see how easy this is to line up. I did not have to mark my vertical and horizontal center lines because the blocks are the markings themselves. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to figure out, well, first I'm going to set my foot. Remember, every time we gotta get on a different fabric or a different quilt block, we want to reset that foot. And one of the things that's, I think, really important is to make sure that you can go over this seam allowance right here without it pushing real hard or snow plowing. Okay. And yet it's a fine balance because you don't want that foot up too high on either side of this seam because then you're going to end up with skipped stitches. So what I like to do is go ahead and ride it a little bit high on the single fabrics so that it goes over this seam. What I have done with the seams, and I think it's an absolute great thing to do. It's one of the best things that I've ever learned about, and it is called a tailor's clapper. Okay, this is it. It's a piece of wood, just a piece of wood. I got it off of Etsy. Okay, this one just happens to have a little pin cushion in it, so it's kind of cute. What I do is I use steam. I get my seams steamed down really nice. And then I take this and set it on top and hold it down. And what that does is it flattens these seams out so that, as you can see, there's hardly any raise to them at all. They're almost like totally flush with the regular fabric. So especially in a center like this when you have so many coming together, I have found this to be a valuable tool. And Christmas is coming, remember? So they're not very expensive. I'm sure someone on your list would be happy to help you out with one of those as a gift this year. Okay, so back we're going to go. Now, the other thing I want to talk about this morning, and what I'm doing is I'm just picking up my bobbin thread here, is to practice going in different directions with your template as opposed to your quilt block, which is not a big deal when I've got a 16-inch block here. I mean, I could turn this around from now until 6 Sundays from now, and it's going to be easy peasy, right? But when you see the big quilt, you're going to understand why I really stress making sure that you can stitch in all directions. Okay, let's see. Oh, Julia's here. Good morning, Julia. Teresa's here from Utah. Another cold day in the UK. Oh, I'm sorry, but we got it here too. I'm sorry. Linda L. She has her mom's clapper and she loves it. Isn't that special? My mom never had one, or if she did, she hid it because I never saw it. Joyce says, I always use my clapper on my seams. You're right. It is a valuable tool, and it is valuable. There's little things we learn as we go along, and it's kind of like nobody wrote a book on all of this. Maybe that's something I should think about if I ever retire fully, although truly am retired, but this is a labor of love. So here we go. We're going to do some stitching as soon as I get another little swig of caffeine in me here. Oh, gotta have caffeine in the morning. Okay, so I'm going to hold these thread tails back. I want to make sure you've got a good view here. The reason that we hold these thread tails back is so that we don't end up with a thread nest on the back side. Remember, we are stitching on a finished quilt. So we have the backing fabric, we have our batting, and then we have our top of our quilt. So when we are done, we want that back of that quilt to look as pretty as the front. This will help us accomplish that. One stitch in place, and that's just because I make toe catchers. And if you're not sure what a toe catcher is, it's that great big stitch that we start with. And we're going to stop when we hit reference line 2. Now I'm going to line up my template on reference line 3, and we are going to stitch from reference line 2 to reference line 4. And here we go, one stitch in place. Remember, we're just stitching around this template. We're not pushing against it. We're not pulling against it, which I think is the hardest thing for beginners. Just remember, ride along it. Keep your shoulders nice and relaxed, and that will help. And I need to take one more stitch here, which is fine. So now I've got my vertical lined up here and in the back, and we're going to come around and do one more. Now on this one, I am making small stitches because, again, it is a curve. Anytime I'm doing curves, I shorten that stitch length down just a little bit. And what it does is it helps the curve to appear smoother. Okay, so now we're going to go again, lining up. Let's see, that was 2, 4, 6. We're lining up on the even numbers, stitching from odd number to odd number. And I'm just going to quickly go around here. Now, the other thing that I have come, and this is recent, this is something that I just figured out just very recently. I've always used a size 90-14 needle. And I know you guys who were here with us last night heard this already, but I don't think everybody was here last night, so I do want to repeat this. I found that using the 90-14 needle, I was unhappy with my smaller stitches. So what I did is I switched down to a smaller needle, and I'm much happier with the way my small stitches look. So if you're questioning how your stitches are looking, you may want to look at your needle size and you may want to change that out. Okay, here we go. We're almost to the end. And make sure that needle is down. If you have a needle up, needle down function in your machine, this is a really good time to use it. Okay, I do not have that with this vintage machine. So everything I do, I need to do manually. But you know what? That's okay. I'm good with that. Okay, we have one. Oh, we've reached the end. There we go. I thought I had one more to do. Okay, this is a practice piece. I am not going to worry about varying threads. Okay. Ooh, something just went on the floor. Surprise. Okay, if I don't drop something, it's not a good day, right? All right. So I'm going to come to the back here. And there we go. So there's our first round. And it's very simple. The second round is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is we're going to use the number 66, which is, you'll see, taller, or I'm sorry, it's bigger around. And so by using it at the 8.5 inch, it's going to come out from where we've already used it. Now, if you want, you could go ahead and put it opposite the first line of, or the first section of arcs there, and it would give another very interesting looking um, embellishment. So I'm not going to stitch the next one because I really want you all to see the stitching on the actual quilt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my circles on quilts. Okay. The reason I'm doing that is it's going to give me a place where I'm going to free motion from one line to the next. Carla's here, and so is Pat. Good morning. Julia, as you quilt as you go, is here from the UK. Okay, good job, guys. Let's see what Joyce has to say. Joyce says, I'm going to have to try using a different needle. I use the 9014 pretty much for everything because she does a lot of machine embroidery. Oh, thank you, Joyce. These are little things that I learn along the way, these tips that I give you guys. And I'm going to let me preface this with, okay, I don't intend this to be, I had a teacher. Okay, let's just back up. I had a quilting teacher who said it's my way or the highway. I don't believe in that. I really don't. I believe in what works for you is correct. Okay. And sometimes I wasn't, well, I was a rebel. I did things my own way. This particular instructor didn't believe in using steam in the iron. So, you know what I did? I snuck an iron in the back of the room and I filled it with water and I used steam. But you will always find that we have no universal rules. What works for Joyce may not work for Linda. And what works for Trees may not work right for Pat. So use what works best for you. You'll never hear me say this is the only way to do something because there's always more than one way. And I definitely am not a my way or highway kind of gal. Okay. Now, what I've just come to understand with this design is that this circle right here is 8.5 inches. Okay. So I took my circles on quilts, and I'm going to show you two different ways that I use this template. And I am going to put, there we go. I'm going to put an 8.5 inch circle on here. Okay. And what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you guys the steps that I took on this quilt. Now remember, on the circles on quilts, you want to stay either on the inside or on the outside because this foot, if let me back up, this channel is just a little bit larger than this foot. And the reason being is if the foot and the channel were the exact same size, it would not move because it's on a curve. Okay? So I'm going to stick to the inside, take that first stitch in place. Again, this is an arc. I'm going to keep my stitches nice and shallow, shorter than normal. When I stop to move, I am going to definitely make sure my needle is down. If not, we could end up with kind of a sticky situation where things move and then we have to go back and pick out stitches. And I think you all know I really don't like to pick out stitches. My mother told me when I was young and first started sewing, she said, you know, for every inch you sew, you're going to end up taking out a yard of thread. And I told her at that time, well, then I'm not going to sew. I see no point in that. Needless to say, she won. And I sew. I quilt. I've been doing this since I was about 8 years old. And, you know, as much as I complained about it as a child, and especially as a teenager, because we used to make our own clothes instead of going to all the fun stores and buying them, I to this day am forever grateful that this is a skill she taught me and a skill that she helped me, encouraged me. Okay, she beat it into me that I was always going to need this skill and I would use it the rest of my life. You know what? She was right. She really was. I wish she were here to see what this has become. Okay. You'll also notice I'm taking my time with this. I don't like to rush through things. I would rather spend 2 hours here with you guys showing you how to do things than to rush through and have it done poorly. Okay, we're not going to go all the way around. I'm going to stop when we get to here. And what I want to show you too is you can flip this template over and go ahead and put your foot right here and hold on to your fabric instead of your template and let the needle actually move the template for you. It's kind of cool how that works. Again, you want to stay nice and even. You want smaller stitches and you don't want to speed through this process. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and just going to stop right here. You see how easy that goes over that seam allowance? And that's because of that tailor's clapper that we used to smush those seams down. Real technical term there, smush, right? Okay, so now I've got this 8.5 inch circle, and I'm going to put a larger oval on top and a smaller oval on the bottom. And those are going to be number 62 and 66. So let's get 62 out. That's the smallest one I'm going to use and number 66 is the largest. Okay, let's see what you guys have been up to. Deanna. Oh my, your memory brought back my memories with learning with my grandmother on a turtle machine. Isn't that beautiful memories, Deanna? I think they're just fabulous. Well, Silver Dolphin, I haven't seen you in a while. Good morning. And have a happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Deanna, or I'm sorry, yeah, Donna said the same here, Deanna. She learned on her grandma's Singer 66 red-eyed treadle. Donna, you inherited it, named it Margaret after her. How special is that? That is so, so awesome. I think we all can stop and think back and thank the women in our lives who came before us and passed these skills down to us because, without them, I don't think we'd be here today. And I think that is just fabulous. All right. We're going to do a lot of flipping of templates here. Okay. So the inside one is going to be at 8.5 inches. The outside one is going to be at 14.5. Let's start with the outside one. So I'm going to put the pin in at 14.5 inches, and that's going to be right here. Let me show you a little better. I'm going to grab this. You'll be able to see that a lot better. Here is 14 inches, and here's 15 inches, and you'll see that the holes for the tack are every half inch. Now they're not half of an inch away on the template because remember we have half of an inch on one side, half of or quarter of an inch on one side, quarter of an inch on the other side, and that makes the half inch difference from edge to edge. Okay, outside edge to outside edge. I think that may explain it a little better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line this up. I'm going to pull my bobbin thread up and you'll see I'm right exactly on that 8.5 inch line. And I know it doesn't make sense that it's 14.5 inches here, but the 14.5 inches measures from outside edge to outside edge. Okay? It's going to become more apparent when we put the small one on. All right, I'm going to lift that up. And what you're going to notice is this one I have a gate in. The newer ones have needle channels. Okay, the needle channels are just so much easier. I love them. Stitch in place. Take my smaller stitches because I'm doing an oval. It's a circular motion. And you see how beautiful I came right across that seam without as much as a hesitation. And that is thanks to the tailor's clapper. And I did it on that one as well. Okay, beautiful. This is such an easy shape. It really is. And there's so much more we can do with this oval template. Okay, we're going to come right back to our starting spot. So now I'm going to remove this template and I'm going to attach the smaller template and we're going to put it on the 8.5 inch hole. And we're lining up, get this out of the way for you here. We're lining up our vertical center. And now I'm going to take that first stitch in place. And we're going to come around. Nice and steady. And how do we get nice and steady? By practicing. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this template off. There's two things we can do here. If you're confident with your free motion skills, you can just go ahead and free motion over to the next line. If you're not comfortable with them, you can go ahead and put the circles on quilts back on. And if you don't want to make this circle prior, you can do it this way as well. I just kind of liked the circle there because I'm pretty confident with my free motion skills. So I didn't feel the need to put the circles on quilts template back on. but I want to do this so I can show you that it easily can be done. And there we go. And now we're going to just stitch over to the next reference line, and we're going to stop there. We'll take this off. Now we're going to go ahead and put that number 66 back on. And remember, this is 14.5 inches. We're going to line up the vertical center. Beautiful. And we're going to go ahead and make our circle. This is really very easy design. It's not difficult at all. And I'm going to speed up my machine here a little bit. I should have a speed button on me. Okay, there we go. We're coming around and right back to where we started. We're going to go ahead and take this out. Come on, you. There we go. And again, we're going to put on the number 62 at 8.5 inches right here. We're going to line up that vertical center. Do any smooshing we need to do. If you need to do a little, it's not the end of the world. And around. And look at this. The nice thing about this is we've missed that big spot here where we have a lot of seams coming together. Okay. However, because I use that tailor's clapper, if I had hit that spot, I would not have had trouble going over it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the 8.5 inch circles on quilts back on, and we're going to stitch to the next reference line. And here we go. All right, and stop. And we're just going to keep repeating this process all the way around. All right, let's get that thread out of the way. I'm going to do this one last time, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to put the actual quilt onto the machine so you can see how I do that. Okay, 14.5 vertical, so that vertical center all lined up. And again, you'll see here's where all the seam allowances come together. We're going to miss that. This is a scrappy quilt. Actually, what I did was I went into my scrap box that I keep. I cut these quilt squares in, I think they're 2.5 inch squares. No, they got to be bigger than that. I can't remember the dimensions. But this is one of those projects where you just continually make blocks, and you can do a lot of things with them. One of the things you can do is make a quilt out of them, like I did. I have a grandson who I think is this quilt just matches his personality. So I have made this for him. And, oops, I got stuck up on something. There we go. There we go. And this will be the last one I will do. And come around. And he was in mind too when I did the design. I really thought of two things. One is, do I want the quilting or do I want the quilt to be the star of the show? I want the quilt to be the star of the show, but I want the quilting to show as well. So we're going to go around, all the way around with this. Simple, easy, doesn't take a whole lot of time. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this tack out because I wanted to not end up on the floor in my foot. And I keep my tats in these little pen mores. Um, just helps me to keep them where they belong. Okay, so what do you think? You like? Is this a failure or a success? Good morning, Mary. How are you? Oh, Patsy's getting her turkey on the smoker. Oh, that sounds so good. Okay. Julia Reeves is wondering how many templates do you have? I have no idea. Julia, I do not know how many I have. What I can do, here, I'm going to just shut this off for a second. I'm going to go ahead and turn it, and I'm going to open it up. You see those file folders right there? Those are my templates. I have a lot, kind of a lot. I do not have every template made. Okay. So, yeah. And I have not told my husband how many I've got there. Of course, I don't really know how many I've got there. And there's my sewing room girls. There you see it. This is not a featherweight. Someone just asked. Oh, M. Knapp asked, am I using a Singer Featherweight? No, M. I am using a Singer 301. It is the big sister of the Featherweight. I do have featherweights and I have tried to use them for ruler quilting. What I find is there's the throat space on a featherweight is so small that it makes it quite difficult to use templates on the featherweight. The other thing is you cannot lower the feed dogs on a featherweight, which also makes it a little more difficult. So if you want to try a featherweight, what you might want to do is take an index card and punch a hole for the needle to go through and just tape it over the feed dogs. And hopefully that will work. Okay. All right. So you guys think it's a success. Great. Passy has 2 fall drawers with templates. Good job. Donna keeps a spreadsheet and has a summary of the number of templates she has. I think that's awesome. Susie does keep a spreadsheet. Otherwise, she would buy the same stuff. Susie, I'm hanging my head in shame because I have done that more than once. On the upside, some of my friends have really benefited from my dual purchases because when I make a dual purchase, I normally give it to somebody who does not have that template. All right. So here's our practice. Do I suggest practicing before you put it on a big quilt? Absolutely. Okay, so here comes the quilt. And I'm just going to get a couple of things picked up here or they will end up on the floor and I do not want them to. Okay, so where are we at here? I have to unfold it. I had it folded up, waiting for you girls to get here. All righty. It is a large lap size quilt, maybe a small twin. And here's the part that I am working on and that I'm going to share with you. The first block that I did was in the center, and it is right there. I'm going to turn that down. There we go. It is right there. This is the center block. Okay. There are some imperfections in there. There's no doubt about it. And I'm okay with it because I'm not perfect. I'm really not perfect. The other thing is that I'm not going to point them out to anybody. Okay. Chances are 99% of the time, if you don't point out a mistake, nobody's going to see it. And that is a lovely thing, isn't it? Here's how the inside ended up looking. when I had the two rotations on there. Okay. And then you'll see that this is the section that we just finished right here. So let's go ahead and bring it back. And here is the block that I am working on presently. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to make sure of a couple of things. And one thing is, oops, I'm going to come over here. Right here is the corner of my extension table. And I have another one over to my left. This is what I find will hang my quilt up easier than anything else. Okay. So, what I like to do is make sure that I have it lifted up and huddled like this. Okay. The other thing is, we have a suspension system that works beautiful when we set it up to hold the back of our quilt, I like, and the side of my quilt. And what that does is it keeps the weight of the quilt more or less off of the bed of the machine. And when it does that, we're able to move it around much easier. The other thing that is really, really important is to make sure you have a grid glider on. Now, you guys can see my grid glider is pretty beat up. I've been using this thing for, I would say, at least 2 years, but it still works great. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I do use the polish, and I polish the top of my machine, and I also polish my grid glider. And this is how the polish comes, little microfiber cloth. The polish is in this really beautiful blue bottle, which I've been trying to find a use for because I've got a few. Okay, and this is the table polish and table and insert polish kit. Okay, you don't need a whole lot either, just a little bit, rub it on. A lot of times I just use my hands to spread it around because I really like the smell of it. And then when it dries a little bit, I go ahead and use the fiberglass. Somebody said, well, what about turtle wax? I personally think turtle wax may be a bit harsh on the gray gliders. I've never used it. And the price of the polish is very reasonable. So, yeah. Okay, let's see where we are. Oh, Jean is here from Mount Vernon. Good morning, Jean. It's really early out there in Washington. And Lisa is here as well. Sorry so late. Don't worry about it, Lisa. We do remember, we do record these so they can be watched at another time. And I do try, I don't normally watch every one of my lives, but I do try to watch a random sampling of them to make sure that I take a look at things and see how I can improve on them. Okay, there we go. Now, remember we talked about this right at the beginning? This is what I don't really want to put the tack through here because I've got my heaviest seam allowance coming together here, although it's really flat because I did use the tailor's clapper. But to get under this when you're in the center of this quilt is challenging to say the least. So what I do is I just put the tape down, I line up my crosshair lines with my vertical and horizontal center and just secure it. Okay. I have found that this works really well for maybe 2 or 3 blocks, depending on how often I'm changing my template. And the tape is not that expensive. It's RK tape. It's an embroidery tape, and we have been using it for years for ruler quilting as well. And it actually lasts quite a while. And this is what it looks like. So you should ask your local quilt store if they don't have it to please carry it. Most small businesses, if you would like something, they will do everything they can to provide it for you. Okay. Uh, Deb says, I put used needles in old bottles. Oh, what a great idea. Those little blue bottles, when it's empty, Cactus Deb, uses it to put her old needles in. What a great idea. Yeah, I use something similar. It's just this, and I keep my needles in it. And ladies, when you dispose of this, because we all do, and you can see this is a brand new one. I just got rid of my old one because it was pretty full. Tape the covers down before you throw them in the trash. Okay, just put some masking tape over the top because you don't want anybody to get stuck with needles. Right, Deb? Uh, Deb and I are both old healthcare workers, so we think about things like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is you can see I've already got my circle on here, so I can put that away or at least off to the side right now. Because on this one, I'm going to show you how I travel from one to the next. So the first one I'm going to do is the larger one, and this is going to be put on at the 14.5 inch. Yeah, 14.5 inch. If you're unsure, what you could do is just set it on and get your spacing gauge out because you're going to know if that's a quarter of an inch, that's where it belongs. And if you have to smush a little, go ahead, smush a little. It's not the end of the world. Okay, and I do have to smush a little. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to pull my thread up on that crosshair right there. Bring you guys in so you can see it a little better. There we go. And get that bobbin thread up. Boy, today I'm really struggling with that bobbin thread. I'm not really sure why. Put it back down. Okay, so I've got everything lined up. I'm making sure I'm puddled over here so I'm not going to stick on the edge of my extension table. Right now, I do not have my suspension system on, but when I go to start working on this again, it will be in place. Take that one stitch in place and off we're gonna go. There we go. And what you're gonna see is this is a little thicker than the sample that I had. And I notice a little issue that I have with this one. What I did, and I knew I was doing it as I was doing it, as you see, I came off of the template here. But that's not a big worry because what I can do is I can go over to where it meets the template. Okay, and then I can come back and what I'll do is I'll pick those little stitches out right there at a later time. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and lift our foot up. You know what, guys? I put the wrong template on there. That's why. Should have been the big one. Oh, well, no worries. I'll just go ahead and take it off. So now I'm going to put the 8.5 inch on the bottom. Line it up. Put that down. Okay, so this is, I want to make sure I've got the right one on here. Uh, so this is the number 62 on the inside. There we go. I put the wrong one off to the side. So I want number 62 on the inside, and I want it on the 8.5 inch post. There we go. So I will be taking this whole rotation out and replacing it. I love it when I make mistakes. And quite honestly, you know what? I don't mind when I do because I want you guys to know that I'm not perfect. I am so far from perfect. It's not even funny. And yes, I make mistakes. And yes, I fix them as a rule. Okay, so now we're back where we need to be. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove this template. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to free motion stitch over here just to show you all the people who are, because some quilters are confident enough to do that, others aren't, and that's okay. So now I'm just going to take that one stitch in place. What I find when I am free motion quilting, especially traveling, is I keep my needle going nice and steady and slow. And it usually works out very well. Okay, so you'll see it's a pretty good travel. I'm going to go ahead and you'll see I do a lot of smoothing out. Oops, I'll put that needle up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and put the number 62 back in here on the 8.5 inch. And I need to move this around. Now, I've got an issue here, and I want you guys to see it. This is the disadvantage to the small machines. I cannot put this template on without turning my quilt because it's too long to fit into the throat. This is as far over as it will go. So I do need to adjust the quilt, but you'll see not a lot. Okay, then I'm going to make my little puddle here. The only part of the quilt that needs to be nice and flat right now is this part where we are sewing. What happens over there or over here, it doesn't matter because we're not stitching on those areas. We are stitching right here, and that is all. I like to have it nice and flat where my hands are as well. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to line everything up. I'm on the 8.5. I have the right template. It's the number 62. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a rotation. Now I'm going to be honest with y'all. I did not plan this design to miss every major intersection on this quilt. It just happened that way. It's one of those happy mistakes. Okay, now I'm going to hit the right the right template and I'm going to go ahead and put that on, and that is going to be at 14.5. And there it is. I'm going to close my gauge, line it up, and come around. Don't forget to move your hands when you need to. With these larger templates, and I'm just puddling here, I suggest, I don't have it here, but I am going to add staple tape right here. I think it's going to help me with, it's not sliding, but it feels like it may. And that can leave you very uncomfortable. So I am going to add a little staple tape to it. There we go. Here we come down. And we are going to meet right where we started. And it is that easy. And you'll see everything stays nice and tight with the pin right here. And like I said, it is a lot of switching around of templates, but you know what? I'm fine with that. It's one of those things, just do a couple at a time when you feel like it. That's how I did these blocks too. They were just a few at a time as I felt like it. And I can cut those off because I'm going to take those stitches out. And before I knew it, I had a little tote, small tote, um, full of these blocks. So I was able to put them to good use. So, what do you guys think? Joyce uses a screw top jar for old pins, needles, and rotary blades. That's a great idea. You know what I use for my rotary blades is a one of those mint. uh, They come in a mints that come in a round plastic tin, round plastic case, and they work real well as well. So good job, Joyce. Definitely. So that's this morning's show today. What we had is we worked with circles on quilts, we worked with artisan curves. I showed you how to be able to put your pin on without going all the way through the fabric, which is awesome. Oh, Fernie, thank you so much. She said she's thoroughly enjoying this and happy to be here. Well, you know what? I am happy you're here also. And Carla, you have a great Thanksgiving as well. Donna, thank you. I'm here for you guys. I love being here for you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that stuff that we're supposed to tell you to do. Yeah, hit the like button. Hit the like button. That's always good too. Um, I will continue doing this as long as the good Lord lets me and you ladies want me. Okay. Because this is just fun. It is. I really enjoy it. So, if we don't have any last minute questions, we'll go ahead and sign off. Have a great Thanksgiving. Joyce is making beef roast instead of turkey. We're having ham instead of turkey. Debbie, you are quite welcome. I just love seeing you guys here. It's so much fun. And I will continue to do it. So until we meet again, enjoy your Thanksgiving and let's quilt.